Okay, Dr. Ron, Dr. Ron, you get another long one. You get
another long one, yeah. I'm stepping up here. Hello, Doc. I'm 25 years of age. I used steroids straight for 18 months. I stayed on 500 milligrams of testananthate every week and cycled on and off of other compounds every 10 weeks with trenbolone and anthate, 400 milligrams per ml, and EQ at 500 milligrams per ml, taking 4 to 6 week breaks between switching compounds. I used anadrol twice in the 18 months for 4 weeks at 100 milligrams every day. Also, I used Arimidex and at a half milligram every day, and looks like cabergoline, I think is what he means right here, at a half milligram every 2 days. The last 2 months, I decided to do a bodybuilding show and added in Winstrol for 6 weeks at 80 milligrams, and then and 100 milligrams of clenbuterol with testosterone and trenbolone to finish up the cycle day of my competition. 2 weeks after I tried the normal post-cycle therapy, Clomid 100, 150, 50, and Novoldex 40, 40, 20, 20. 10 weeks after my last injection, I was going through depression and lost all sex drive. Went to get bloods, and testosterone was 51 nanograms per deciliter, so my family doc put me on 200 milligrams of Test-Sip per week and sent me to an endocrinologist who I am still working with. He took me off of the shot and switched to Androgel, 2 pumps and 50 milligrams Clomid. He said this would allow me to feel good while the Clomid kickstarts my hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis into producing FSH and LH. Then when my numbers increase to the amount he wants, we would drop the Androgel and I could then start to produce naturally again. It has been 2 months and my FSH and LH levels have not moved. FSH is 0.3 and LH is 0.07. My endo said he has not seen someone not respond to the Clomid before, but thinks it's where I was on gear for so long and eventually the Clomid will take effect. So he has me on the same dose of Clomid and Androgel and wants to redo labs in 1 month. I know synthetic testosterone lowers the levels and Clomid raises them. So could they be fighting against each other? I'm in the process of getting a second opinion from another endo. However, they are not nearly as educated as you on athletes that have used steroids and try to recover from cycles. My doc deals mostly with older people who need TRT, not someone trying to restart natural production. So I'd greatly appreciate your input on what you suggest for me. I'm a newlywed and we have been trying to conceive for 7 months now, and I'm beginning to lose hope into getting my production back up to where I can get the job done. Thank you for any input you might have for me in advance. All right, so a few things pop straight out here. At 25 years old, in theory, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis has not been thoroughly formed, or we used to call it hardwired. Now it's more of a soft-wired thing we believe is going on. But excuse me.
Till 27, you said, right?
Pardon?
Usually until 27, you're not.
Like 26. I mean, but that's just a number.
Right.
Some people might, be hardwired, before that, maybe some afterwards, but for the most part, that's where they call it. At 25 years old, that means, somewhere 18 months prior to that, he did all this stuff. And this is a lot of testosterone and or anabolic steroids, which isn't so important as he was on it for such a long time.
A year and a half, yeah.
But I think the two are more of the issue. So, look, I know a lot of men who have been on steroids from a young age who had plenty of children and are doing fine now. But I know some that have had issues after doing it. And it's kind of random. Some guys are fertile myrtles or the equivalent of, and some guys aren't. So, what's pretty easy though is, after 10 weeks of being on so much, I wouldn't expect any natural production to have more than just barely begun. Excuse me. If I read this correctly, normal PCT, he calls it Clomid 100, 150, 50. Does that mean that was 4 days? Or is that a weekly, which is also possible? That's probably more realistic. 100 every day for a week, then the next week, and then 50 every day for the following 2 weeks. along with Novodex. Only a month. You got to remember that if you look at some of these things, like for example, I don't know, it's testosterone cypionate. If an 8-day half-life means you've got a terminal half-life of 40 days. That's when you're doing those kind of dosages. Okay, half-life is a rate of metabolism. It's not a time period. So 8-day half-life means that half of it's gone and metabolized in 8 days. Half of that at that point is then metabolized in the next 8 days, and so on. Not the first half 8 days, the second half in 8 days. So if you have a starting level from all that gears, it's called, right, and you start doing your halving, after 40 days or 10 weeks, you're still on your program. You're still on a cycle, so to speak. So I wouldn't expect a whole lot at 10 weeks. Clomid is not my favorite, but it tends to work, especially for fertility. And I would submit to you that fertility medicine is pretty much still in its witch doctoring phase. We don't have a whole lot of, with the exception of, actually putting egg and sperm together, in vitro fertilization and stuff, we got some pretty good technology. But in terms of coaxing the body back, excuse me, we don't have a surefire way of getting people back on track. Clomid, though, because it's a selective estrogen blocker, meaning it'll block estrogen in certain areas but not others, like the liver, can be good for bringing fertility back. Not necessarily the best for just bringing testosterone levels back, although you argue they come hand in hand. But it's not exactly the same thing. But Clomid, people feel horrible on Clomid in my experience. The people who say they don't are the people like this who took it for 3 weeks afterwards. And yeah, of course you're not going to feel terrible. You're still on your cycle because of what I referred to earlier. So but when you're off of testosterone, your testosterone's at 51 again, okay, which he is at, I forget where he pulled that number, but I think it was after 10 weeks. Then yeah, you might be miserable adding Clomid to that. I prefer to use an AI. Just because it makes more sense to me, because you're preserving the very thing you want to keep on board, the testosterone. You're not letting any of it convert and then just blocking the estrogen that's made. So you're sparing the testosterone as much as you can, and you're keeping your estrogen levels low enough so your body doesn't say, well, okay, and we've reviewed this, I think, but quickly, whether your testosterone levels are too high or your estrogen levels are too high, your body's not going to send a signal, meaning specifically your pituitary to the testicles, hey, make more testosterone. Why? Because estrogen can be high and your body won't send a signal because estrogen is made from testosterone, right? And so if it recognizes that either one of those is high, it says, whoa, we can't have any more of this. So it won't send a signal to testicles to produce more. Did that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. To answer his question, yes, the androgel is somewhat counterproductive. I think, not to second guess an endocrinologist, but to his favor. I think he's just trying to make him feel better in the meantime. That having been said, not going to do it, not even close. So I don't mean to give a left-handed compliment to the endocrinologist, because it really isn't a compliment. I don't mean to be a smart aleck either, but 2 pumps of androgel is a joke. That will act more as a suppressant than it will anything else. Really, that's all you're doing. So yeah, I would drop the androgel. What you could do is, in conjunction with the endocrinologist, is get back on testosterone, cypionate, and slowly taper this time. Replacement dose so you can feel good again, and try and get your production back up using a stimulant like HCG. Mm-hmm. And it's tricky. Again, I don't have the exact science down to this either, because why not? Because everyone's different. But the idea is to get your own production back up as you drop your replacement, okay, so you don't go through that misery. Yeah. And again, I think the best way to do it is stimulate your testicles with HCG, because you can do that whether you're taking a replacement in a large amount, small amount, or none. And again, use the AI, anastrozole, to keep the estrogen in check, so that when you finally drop all sorts of help, if you will, and HCG is not working all the time necessarily, your body will be able to start producing when called upon, when it realizes, hey, we've got a 51 nanogram per deciliter testosterone and we need to get more. Okay, it won't block that functionality. So timing, you're expecting way too much, way too soon. The fact that you did all this stuff when you're young, be on the lookout for some prolonged effects from, perhaps just be on the lookout. Don't punt or think, okay, nothing's working, because maybe that some rewiring has to occur because he did this at such a young age, and definitely give it more time, and maybe consider not maybe I would definitely punt the androgel and consider something else if you're that depressed. And by the way, we know that testosterone is a natural antidepressant, so it's no wonder you're not feeling good. Yeah. As far as fertility, as I said earlier, typically along with the testosterone production, the fertility will be returned. Why? Because the Sertoli cell isn't affected directly, although it hasn't been working that much lately. But we're not replacing sperm. Okay, what we've been replacing is something that the Leydig cells make, testosterone. The rub here is that for the Sertoli cells to work, they need some testosterone, but it has to be localized. So once we get the Leydig cells up and running again and get that local production of testosterone going, the Sertoli cells should pick up their function right away and fertility will be restored. But we got to get the one before the other, and of course, you want both. So I don't think you have to do anything extra, although there is a FSH analog that we can use. It's really expensive to use, and again, rarely do I ever see its need. I would wait it out and just see if you can get, again, my recommendation would be consider talking to your endocrinologist and saying, hey, how about we use HCG and an anastrozole to get the Leydig cells functioning again? And I think just give it some more time, it'll come back. The fact that you're young is huge. Okay, if you're doing it at my age or 60 years old, I have friends who have done it, and it took them 9 months or more to get fertile again. But 25 years old, if you believe in evolution, you're here to reproduce, man. So your body's cheering you on, saying, hey, let's get these things functioning again. So just wait it out, and it should get better. I think I answered everything, right?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dr. Rand.